The worst snowstorm in 15 years swallowed New York City before midnight. Traffic lights disappeared beneath swirling white winds. Streets emptied as temperatures plunged below freezing. News channels begged people to stay indoors, warning that anyone caught outside for more than 20 minutes risked severe frostbite. Yet somewhere in the middle of that relentless blizzard, a little girl wandered alone. She couldn't have been older than 6. Her tiny pink boots sank into the deep snow with every trembling step. One mitten was missing, her golden curls were dusted with ice, and tears had frozen against her rosy cheeks. She clutched a worn stuffed rabbit tightly against her chest, calling for someone who never answered. "Daddy?" The wind swallowed her frightened voice. She took another step, then another, until her small legs finally gave out. She collapsed beside a deserted sidewalk beneath the flickering light of a broken street lamp, too cold to cry anymore. Only a miracle could save her now. Just 2 blocks away, Olivia Brooks pulled down the metal shutter of her neighborhood bakery. The sign above the shop read Honey Hearth Bakery, its warm yellow letters glowing against the snowy darkness. Olivia sighed as she locked the door. Business had been terrible all week. Most people had rushed home before the storm became dangerous, leaving shelves full of untouched cinnamon rolls and fresh sourdough bread. She adjusted the thick scarf around her neck before lifting 2 paper bags filled with leftover pastries. Every winter, she delivered unsold bread to the small homeless shelter a few streets away. Her mother had started the tradition years ago. After her mother passed away, Olivia never stopped. She believed warm bread could remind people they hadn't been forgotten. At 27, Olivia wasn't the woman fashion magazines celebrated. She was plus-size, with soft curves that filled her oversized wool coat, warm brown eyes that seemed to comfort everyone around her, and chestnut hair tucked beneath a knitted beanie her grandmother had made years earlier. People often underestimated her because of her appearance. But everyone who entered Honey Hearth Bakery remembered one thing. No one baked sweeter bread. Or possessed a kinder heart. The icy wind whipped against her face as she began walking through the storm. Visibility had dropped to only a few feet. Every breath felt like inhaling broken glass. Halfway down the block, she heard something. Very faint. Almost impossible beneath the howling wind. A child crying. Olivia stopped walking. She listened carefully. Nothing. Maybe she'd imagined it. She took another step. Then she heard it again. "Daddy?" Her heart skipped. Without thinking, she placed the bags of bread beneath a bus stop shelter and followed the tiny voice through the snow. "Hello?" No answer. "Is someone there?" Only the wind replied. She pushed forward until she noticed a small pink boot sticking out from behind a snow-covered bench. Her stomach dropped. Oh my God. A little girl lay curled into herself, barely moving. Her tiny fingers had turned pale from the freezing cold. Her lips were beginning to lose their color. Olivia immediately dropped to her knees. "Sweetheart, can you hear me?" The girl's eyelids fluttered. She whispered only one word. "Daddy?" Olivia quickly removed her own thick wool coat and wrapped it tightly around the little girl's trembling body. Without hesitation, she pulled off her gloves and rubbed the child's icy hands between her own. "They're freezing." She looked around desperately. The streets were empty. No cars. No pedestrians. No help. Pulling out her phone, she dialed emergency services. No signal. The storm had disrupted the network. Her breathing quickened. She couldn't leave the little girl alone. She couldn't carry her all the way to the hospital through waist-deep snow. Then she remembered. Her bakery. It was closer than any clinic. Gathering every ounce of strength she had, Olivia carefully lifted the child into her arms. The little girl was frighteningly light. As Olivia struggled through the blizzard, snow soaked through her sweater almost instantly. The freezing wind bit into her skin without the protection of her coat. Every step became harder. Her boots slipped against hidden ice. Her arms ached from carrying the child. Still, she refused to stop. "You stay with me," she whispered between heavy breaths. "We're almost there." The girl weakly tightened her grip on the stuffed rabbit. Minutes later, Olivia stumbled back inside Honey Hearth Bakery. Warm air rushed over them. She locked the door behind her and rushed toward the kitchen. Remembering an old first aid lesson, she knew not to place the child under very hot water. Instead, she wrapped her in dry blankets, gently warmed her with clean towels fresh from the bakery dryer, and placed a cup of warm, not hot, sweetened milk nearby once the girl began to stir. Only after making sure the child was breathing more comfortably did Olivia realize something. She was shaking uncontrollably herself. Her sweater was soaked. Her hands had turned bright red from the cold. But none of that mattered. The little girl slowly opened her blue eyes. You found me? Olivia smiled through exhausted tears. I wasn't going to let the snow keep you. The child managed a tiny smile before falling asleep again. Olivia reached into the girl's coat pocket, hoping to find a phone number or identification. Instead, she found a small silver bracelet. Engraved on the inside were 3 words that made her blood run cold. Property of D. Moretti? Before Olivia could understand what they meant, the bakery windows suddenly filled with blinding white headlights. 1, 2, 5. Then nearly a dozen black luxury SUVs surrounded the building. Men in tailored black coats stepped into the snow with military precision. Each carried a weapon beneath his jacket. The bakery door rattled violently. Then a deep, commanding voice echoed from outside. Open the door. Pause. My daughter is inside. Olivia's heart pounded. She looked at the sleeping child. Then back toward the entrance. Without realizing it, she had just rescued the daughter of one of the most feared mafia bosses in America. The bakery fell silent. Outside, heavy snow continued to fall as 12 black SUVs surrounded Honey Hearth Bakery like silent predators. Their headlights illuminated the snow-covered street, turning the quiet neighborhood into the scene of a military operation. Olivia instinctively stepped in front of the sleeping little girl. Her heart pounded against her ribs. Whoever these people were, they weren't ordinary parents looking for a lost child. The knock came again. This time calmer. I know she's inside, the deep voice said. If you've protected her, you have my gratitude. Olivia swallowed hard. Slowly she unlocked the bakery door. The icy wind rushed inside. Standing on the doorstep was a man unlike anyone she had ever seen. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and impeccably dressed in a black cashmere overcoat despite the blizzard. Snow rested lightly on his dark hair, but his gray eyes remained fixed on the bakery behind her. Not on the bread. Not on Olivia. On the little girl sleeping beneath the blankets. For the first time since arriving. His cold expression cracked. Dad. The little girl stirred sleepily, recognizing his voice. Daddy? Before anyone else could move, the man crossed the room and carefully knelt beside her. His gloved hands gently brushed a strand of hair away from her face. I'm here, Sofia. The little girl wrapped her tiny arms around his neck. I couldn't find you. You don't have to anymore. His voice, so commanding only moments before, softened into something completely different. Something only a father could possess. Olivia quietly looked away. She suddenly understood why the child had wandered into the storm. She hadn't been abandoned. She had simply become lost. After several long moments, the man stood and faced Olivia. For a second, neither spoke. Then he lowered his head. Just slightly. Enough to show respect. My name is Dominic Moretti. Olivia recognized the name instantly. Everyone in New York did. Some called him a billionaire businessman. Others whispered that he controlled one of the most powerful criminal empires on the East Coast. No one knew where the truth ended. Only that crossing Dominic Moretti was a mistake people rarely survived. You saved my daughter's life, he said quietly. There is no debt greater than that. Olivia shook her head. I only did what anyone should have done. Dominic looked at her carefully. No. His voice remained calm. Most people would have walked past in that storm. Olivia remembered carrying Sofia through the snow, the freezing wind cutting through her soaked clothes. She hadn't thought about danger. Only about the frightened child in her arms. One of Dominic's bodyguards stepped forward. Boss, the doctor is waiting. Dominic nodded before looking back at Olivia. I'd like to repay you. She smiled politely. There's nothing to repay. You nearly froze to death saving my daughter. I'd do it again. Those 4 words caught him completely off guard. She wasn't asking for money. She wasn't asking for recognition. She meant them. She would risk her life again. For a child she had never met. For the first time in years. Dominic found himself speechless. An hour later, after Sofia had been examined by the family's private physician inside one of the SUVs, the doctor returned with reassuring news. She's exhausted and mildly hypothermic, but she'll recover completely. Relief spread across every guard's face. Dominic quietly closed his eyes for a brief second. It was the first genuine relief he had felt all night. Before leaving, Sofia climbed out of the vehicle carrying her stuffed rabbit. She walked straight toward Olivia. Thank you. Olivia knelt. You were very brave. The little girl removed a tiny silver snowflake pendant from around her neck. My mommy gave me this. Olivia smiled. It's beautiful. I want you to have it. Oh, sweetheart. Olivia gently shook her head. I can't take something so special. Sofia frowned. But heroes get presents. Before Olivia could answer, Dominic spoke. Keep it. She looked at him. It's too valuable. It belonged to Sofia's mother. Olivia immediately tried to hand it back. I'm even less able to accept it. Dominic's expression softened. My wife believed kindness should always be remembered. He looked at his daughter. So do I. After a long hesitation, Olivia accepted the pendant. The next morning, Honey Hearth Bakery opened as usual. Olivia hoped life would simply return to normal. She swept the floor, arranged fresh pastries, and greeted her first customers. Then every conversation inside the bakery suddenly stopped. Outside, the same black SUVs had returned. Dominic Moretti walked inside alone. No bodyguards followed. He removed his gloves before approaching the counter. Olivia looked at him in surprise. Is Sofia all right? She's asking for cinnamon rolls. Olivia laughed softly. I'll pack a dozen. Dominic shook his head. I'm here for something else. He placed a neatly folded document on the counter. I have an offer. Olivia glanced at the papers. What kind of offer? My daughter refuses to speak to anyone except you. She looked up. What? The doctors say she trusts you. Dominic's usually calm voice carried the faintest trace of concern. I've tried everything since my wife died 2 years ago. He paused. Nothing has worked. The bakery fell completely silent. Customers quietly pretended not to listen. Dominic met Olivia's eyes. I want you to come to Moretti Manor. She blinked. As what? My daughter's personal companion. He took a slow breath. You'll have your own cottage on the estate. A salary greater than this bakery earns in a year. And complete freedom to leave whenever you wish. Olivia stared at him, unable to believe what she was hearing. Then Dominic added the one sentence that changed everything. I don't need another employee. He looked toward the snow still falling outside before meeting her eyes once more. My daughter needs someone who reminds her that the world can still be kind. Olivia looked around her tiny bakery. The business her mother had built. The life she had always known. Then back at the grieving father standing before her. She had no idea that saying yes would place her directly in the middle of a dangerous mafia war. Olivia didn't answer immediately. For the rest of the morning, Dominic Moretti waited quietly while customers came and went, pretending not to notice the most feared man in New York standing patiently beside a display of cinnamon rolls. Finally, Olivia broke the silence. What happens if Sofia doesn't get better? Dominic looked out the bakery window before replying. I don't know. It was the first honest uncertainty she had heard in his voice. The doctors call it trauma. Since her mother died, she stopped trusting almost everyone. She barely speaks at school. She refuses to eat unless I sit with her. She wakes up screaming almost every night. His expression remained calm, but the exhaustion in his eyes betrayed him. I'm good at protecting my daughter. He paused. I've failed at helping her heal. Olivia's heart softened. For the first time, she wasn't looking at the city's most powerful mafia boss. She was looking at a father who had run out of answers. That evening, Olivia locked Honey Hearth Bakery earlier than usual. After hours of thinking, she had made her decision. The bakery would remain in the care of her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Evelyn Harris, who had helped Olivia's mother for years. It's only for a few weeks, Olivia explained. Mrs. Harris smiled knowingly. Life has a funny way of changing when we least expect it. Olivia laughed nervously. I hope you're right. The black Rolls-Royce arrived just before sunset. This time there were only 2 security vehicles instead of 12. Dominic himself opened the rear passenger door. You don't have to do that, Olivia said. I know. He waited until she was seated before closing it gently. The drive north was surprisingly peaceful. Neither spoke much. The city lights slowly disappeared behind them, replaced by forests dusted with fresh snow and winding private roads. After nearly an hour, enormous iron gates appeared ahead. Each gate bore the Moretti family crest, a silver lion surrounded by olive branches. As the gates opened, Olivia caught her first glimpse of Moretti Manor. It wasn't merely a mansion. It was an estate. Stone pathways curved through snow-covered gardens. A frozen lake shimmered beneath the moonlight. Elegant fountains stood silent beneath blankets of ice. The mansion itself rose 3 stories high, its warm lights glowing through tall windows like a castle from another century. It's beautiful, Olivia whispered. Dominic didn't answer immediately. It used to feel like a home. The front doors opened before they reached the steps. A line of household staff stood waiting. No one smiled. Everyone bowed respectfully. A silver-haired woman stepped forward. "Welcome, Miss Brooks." "I'm Maria," she said warmly. "I've managed this house for 23 years. Olivia smiled. "It's nice to meet you." Maria glanced toward Dominic with quiet approval. "It has been a very long time since I've heard Miss Sofia laugh." As if on cue, tiny footsteps echoed from the grand staircase. "Daddy?" Sofia raced across the marble floor wearing fuzzy pink slippers. The moment she saw Olivia, her entire face lit up. "You came." Before Olivia could answer, the little girl threw her arms around her waist. Dominic froze. Every servant froze. Maria quietly covered her mouth. For 2 years, Sofia had refused to hug anyone except her father. Yet within seconds, she had run straight to Olivia without hesitation. Olivia smiled, gently brushing a strand of blonde hair away from Sofia's face. "I promised you cinnamon rolls." "I ate 3 already." Dominic raised an eyebrow. "Only 3. Sofia giggled. It was a bright, carefree laugh that echoed through the entrance hall. Several servants exchanged emotional glances. Some had tears in their eyes. It was the happiest they had seen the little girl since her mother's funeral. Dominic looked at Olivia. He had offered her a job. Instead, she had already begun giving his daughter something priceless. Oh. Over the next few days, the atmosphere inside Moretti Manor slowly began to change. Sofia started eating regular meals again. She wandered into the gardens with Olivia each afternoon to build snowmen. Every evening, Olivia baked fresh bread in the enormous kitchen, filling the mansion with the comforting aroma of cinnamon and butter. The staff smiled more. The silence that once haunted the halls gradually faded. Even Dominic found himself lingering near the kitchen after long meetings, pretending to read reports while secretly enjoying the sound of Sofia laughing. For the first time since his wife's death, the mansion felt alive again. Late one evening, Dominic stepped onto the terrace overlooking the frozen lake. He found Olivia standing alone beneath the falling snow. "You miss your bakery?" he said. She nodded softly. "Every day." "Then why stay?" Olivia looked toward the glowing windows where Sofia could be seen drawing pictures beside the fireplace. "Because she still needs someone." Dominic followed her gaze. "So do I," he admitted quietly before realizing he'd spoken the words aloud. The silence between them grew unexpectedly warm. Then, a sharp crack echoed through the night. A bullet shattered the stone railing only inches from Olivia's shoulder. Dominic reacted instantly, pulling her to the ground as more gunshots erupted from the darkness beyond the estate walls. Hidden among the snow-covered trees, someone had been watching Moretti Manor. And this time, their target wasn't the Mafia boss. It was Olivia. The first gunshot shattered more than the stone railing. It shattered the fragile piece that had slowly returned to Moretti Manor. Dominic threw Olivia to the ground just as 2 more bullets ripped through the terrace doors, exploding glass across the polished marble floor. "Get down?" His voice thundered across the estate. Within seconds, armed guards flooded the gardens from every direction. Searchlights illuminated the snow-covered trees while security dogs disappeared into the darkness. The peaceful winter evening transformed into a battlefield. Dominic wrapped one arm around Olivia's shoulders, shielding her as another shot echoed from the forest. "Are you hurt?" Olivia shook her head, still trying to catch her breath. I'm okay." He looked directly into her eyes, making certain she wasn't hiding an injury. Only after seeing she was unharmed did he finally release a slow breath. For a man feared by thousands, he had never looked more terrified. Inside the mansion, Sofia stood frozen at the top of the staircase. "Daddy?" Maria quickly picked the little girl up and carried her toward the secure panic room hidden beneath the library. "It's all right, sweetheart." "No," Sofia cried. "I want Olivia." The sound of the child's frightened voice reached Dominic. Without hesitation, Olivia gently touched his arm. "Go to her." "What about you?" "I'll be with Maria." Dominic hesitated. Leaving Olivia behind felt wrong. Dangerously wrong. But Sofia was crying. For the first time in his life, the ruthless Mafia boss found himself torn between protecting 2 people who had somehow become equally important. Nearly an hour later, the shooting finally stopped. The attackers had vanished into the forest before the guards could capture them. Matteo entered Dominic's private study carrying a blood-stained jacket. "We found this near the east wall." Dominic immediately recognized the embroidered crest. A black raven stitched in silver thread. "The Volkov syndicate," he said quietly. Matteo nodded. They've joined forces with our rivals. Dominic's expression darkened. They aren't attacking my business. No. They're attacking my family. The realization settled heavily over the room. Someone believed Olivia had become Dominic's greatest weakness. And in the Mafia world, weaknesses were eliminated. The following morning, Olivia found Dominic standing alone beside the frozen lake. Snowflakes drifted silently onto the shoulders of his dark overcoat. He hadn't slept. Neither had she. "You should send me home," Olivia said softly. He didn't turn around. "No. They're coming because of me. They're coming because of me." She walked closer until they stood side by side. "If I leave, they'll stop." Dominic finally faced her. His gray eyes carried something she hadn't seen before. Fear. Not fear of dying. Fear of losing someone. "They'll never stop." His voice remained calm, but every word carried absolute certainty. "Once our enemies learn someone's important to me," he paused, "they don't let go." Olivia searched his face. "Am I important to you?" The question lingered between them. Dominic had negotiated billion-dollar deals, ended wars, faced assassins without blinking. Yet answering one simple question suddenly felt impossible. Before he could speak, Sofia came running across the snow holding a crayon drawing. "Look." She proudly handed it to Olivia. The picture showed 3 people standing beneath a bright yellow sun. One tall man. One curvy woman. One little girl holding both their hands. Above them, written in uneven childish letters, were 3 words. "My happy family." Olivia smiled, but tears filled her eyes. Dominic stared silently at the drawing. His daughter hadn't drawn her late mother in nearly 2 years. Instead, she had drawn Olivia. And somehow, she had drawn him smiling. That afternoon, Dominic summoned every senior member of the Moretti syndicate. The atmosphere inside the conference room was tense. Maps covered the walls. Security reports lay scattered across the table. "Our enemies crossed a line." His voice was colder than anyone had heard in years. "They fired inside my home." Silence. "They endangered my daughter." More silence. Then Dominic added something that stunned every man in the room. "And they tried to kill Miss Brooks." No one missed the change. He hadn't called her the baker. He hadn't called her the employee. He had spoken her name with unmistakable respect. One elderly captain finally asked, "What are your orders, boss?" Dominic slowly stood. "For years I've protected my empire." He looked around the room. "From this moment forward." His gray eyes hardened with absolute determination. "You are protecting my family." Outside the conference room, Olivia had unknowingly overheard every word. Her heart skipped. She had come to Moretti Manor believing she was only helping a lonely little girl. She never imagined she would become the one person the most feared mafia boss in New York was willing to start a war to protect. The words echoed in Olivia's mind long after the meeting ended. "You are protecting my family." Family. Dominic Moretti had spoken the word without hesitation. Without realizing it, he had already placed her beside Sofia, the 2 people he valued above everything else. Olivia quietly stepped away from the conference room before anyone noticed she had been listening. Her heart felt strangely heavy. She had promised herself she would never become part of the dangerous world hidden behind the walls of Moretti Manor. Yet somewhere between bedtime stories, cinnamon rolls, and Sofia's innocent laughter, she had stopped feeling like a visitor. She had started feeling like she belonged. That night, a freezing wind swept across the estate. Security patrols had doubled since the attack. Floodlights illuminated every corner of the grounds. Dominic stood alone in his office studying surveillance photographs recovered after the shooting. One image caught his attention. A sniper hidden among the trees. Another showed the man's escape route. The third made his blood run cold. It revealed someone standing nearly half a mile away with binoculars, watching only one person. Olivia. Matteo entered quietly. "We identified him." Dominic looked up. "Who?" "Viktor Volkov." The name was enough. Volkov wasn't simply another mafia boss. He was the man responsible for ordering the murder of Dominic's wife 2 years earlier. Matteo placed another file on the desk. "He believes Olivia is your greatest weakness." Dominic slowly closed the folder. "Then he's made the biggest mistake of his life." The following afternoon, Sofia insisted on helping Olivia bake cookies for the household staff. Flour covered the kitchen counters. Chocolate chips somehow ended up on the floor. Even Maria laughed as Sofia proudly declared herself head cookie inspector. For the first time in years, the mansion sounded like a home instead of a fortress. Dominic paused outside the kitchen. He watched Olivia patiently help Sofia decorate heart-shaped cookies. She never rushed the little girl. Never raised her voice. Never acted as though caring for Sofia was a job. She loved the child naturally. His late wife had once told him, "The strongest people aren't the loudest. They're the ones who make everyone around them feel safe." Standing in the doorway, Dominic realized Olivia possessed that same quiet strength. That evening, the peace ended. Every light inside the mansion suddenly went dark. The emergency generator failed. Security radios erupted with frantic voices. "They've cut the power. North cameras offline. Movement near the lake." Before anyone could react, smoke bombs exploded across the front gardens. Masked gunmen poured through the estate. Gunfire echoed in every direction. Dominic immediately reached for Olivia. "Take Sofia to the panic room." Olivia grabbed the frightened little girl's hand. "It's okay," she whispered. "I'm right here." As they hurried through the hallway, a masked attacker burst through a side entrance. He raised his weapon toward Sofia. Without thinking, Olivia stepped directly in front of the child. The gunman fired. The bullet struck the heavy wooden banister inches from Olivia's shoulder. Before he could fire again, a single shot rang out. The attacker collapsed. Dominic lowered his pistol. His breathing was heavy. He crossed the hallway in seconds and pulled Olivia and Sofia tightly into his arms. For a brief moment, the battle outside disappeared. "You could have been killed," he whispered. Olivia looked up at him. So could she. Their eyes met. Neither needed to say anything else. Dominic finally understood why Olivia had risked her life in the snow that first night. Kindness wasn't something she chose. It was simply who she was. An hour later, the attack was over. Several members of the Volkov syndicate had been captured. Others fled into the forest. Viktor Volkov himself had escaped. Mateo approached with the recovered intelligence. "Boss." He handed Dominic a folder. "They never wanted your money." Dominic frowned. "What did they want?" "You." Mateo pointed to a photograph inside. "They knew Olivia would never abandon Sofia. They knew you'd never abandon Olivia. They were trying to lure you into the open." Dominic slowly closed the folder. The realization hit him with crushing force. If Olivia had never rescued Sofia, none of this would have happened. He looked toward Olivia. She was comforting Sofia beside the fireplace, gently brushing the little girl's hair while humming a lullaby. Dominic walked over and knelt beside them. "Sofia." The little girl looked up. "Yes, Daddy?" He smiled softly. "What would you think?" he asked. "If Olivia stayed here forever?" Sofia's eyes grew wide with excitement. "Really?" She immediately hugged Olivia. "Please say yes." Olivia laughed through happy tears before looking at Dominic. "What exactly are you asking?" He reached for her hand. Not as a mafia boss. Not as a billionaire. Simply as a man who had finally found something worth protecting. "You saved my daughter." He smiled for the first time without restraint. "You gave this house its heartbeat again." He took a slow breath. "So here's my life-changing offer." His voice became warm. "Don't stay because it's your job. Stay because—" He gently squeezed her hand. "I can't imagine this home without you." Tears filled Olivia's eyes. She smiled. Then, with Sofia cheering between them, she whispered the one word Dominic had hoped to hear. "Yes." Outside, fresh snow began falling once again. But this time, it didn't bring fear. It brought a new beginning. The end.